Alright everybody, welcome back to yet another episode review video for last night's episode of The Walking Dead. This was Season 8, Episode 11, entitled Dead or Alive, or. Now, I told you guys before, this was kind of a weird title, ending on an or. I don't, like, what's the other option? You know what I mean? I have no idea, but I still really don't know what's happening there with that title, Dead or Alive, or. Like, I don't know why it leaves us on a cliffhanger, if it leads into the next episode title, I'm not sure. But the episode in general was pretty great. Rick was actually not on it. Near the end of it, he did arrive at the hilltop. We didn't actually see him, but they said to open the gates. Basically, Rick's here, stuff like that. But the rest of the episode was essentially focused on the Saviors. Three key parts. There was the Saviors, there was Gabriel and Dr. Carson, basically escaping the Saviors. Because they were, out on their own, stuff like that. They basically tried to get back to Alexandria and get to the hilltop, and Dr. Carson was supposed to be there for Maggie and her baby, right? That was the whole idea of getting him out of there. So there was those two groups, and then, of course, there was the Alexandrians, not including Rick and Michonne, everybody who left when Rick and Michonne stayed behind to basically take care of Carl back in Alexandria. So that including Daryl, Dwight, everybody, right? Tara, Rosita, everybody in that core group that was basically heading towards the hilltop. It kind of showed their journey, if you will. All right, so regarding Daryl and everybody in his group, the synopsis for this episode says, Daryl finds himself in bad company as his group heads to the hilltop. We get to find out exactly what happened here. And I kind of called it, to be honest. I was thinking it was mostly going to be Tara, essentially trying to kill Dwight, not wanting to wait. And that's essentially ended up that's essentially what ended up happening. So they were making their way through the swamp. Tara asked that question like she did in the sneak peek, why is he still breathing? And basically got exclaimed to her, not now. He's still useful after the war. We'll deal with this after the fight. And she didn't necessarily agree to it, but she kind of just shut up, if you will. And anyway, they were making their way through the swamp. They finally made it through. Like, there was really great walkers during this scene too. Like, obviously, like waterlogged walkers, and they were coming up out of the swamp with like seaweed all over them. They looked really gross, really wet, and it was really good special effects. So applauds to them. So yeah, this whole swamp scene was pretty creepy, to say the least, because there was walkers coming up out of the water at some points, attacking Rosita, for example. She ended up fighting it off, obviously. And then there came a point in the swamp where Daryl and Sadiq kind of got a hit of them all, and a whole shit ton of walkers came up in kind of one little area, and Daryl and Sadiq basically cleared them out. So Sadiq's actually starting to become, a more key member of the group. He's actually helping, kill walkers. He's helping them clear them. Like he was basically tag teaming there with Daryl, taking care of the walkers in the swamp. And Daryl basically said, we have to go through them. This is how we get our people to safety. This is how we get to the hilltop. And he agreed because, he wants to honor Carl. That's the last thing we basically heard from Sadiq, is that he's going to honor Carl no matter what it takes. So it's going to be interesting to see that. And when he did get to the hilltop, he ended up basically asking Maggie if there's a med bay, or anything there that he could go to. And she would basically ask, why? Are you sick? Are you hurt? Do you need, attention or anything like that? And he said, no, I'm experienced in the medical field and I thought I could help out. And Maggie looked very grateful. She said, yeah, you can use the trailers. So we got Sadiq now here as a doctor at the hilltop, which is good. But the rest of the rest of the group there, as they were going through the swamp, Tara actually ended up staying behind. She threw Dwight basically a knife and said, we have to go take care of these walkers, because there was walkers basically approaching them from one side of the woods. They stayed behind out of the swamp to essentially, guard their people and stuff, right? So she threw Dwight a knife, basically saying, go clear out the walkers, I'll cover you with a gun. And she ended up doing that, but then after the walkers were cleared, she ended up trying to kill him. She shot at him. He basically dodged out behind a tree, ended up running all the way through the woods into a clearing. And just as Tara caught up to him and was about to basically execute him, Saviors arrived, and they basically dodged into the woods, obviously, Dwight and Tara, and kind of hid from the Saviors, because the Saviors were basically ending up trying to check out the swamp. You know, they basically tried to check out the swamp to see if they might have went through it. It was dangerous for them, but they definitely might have, you know, taken that risk. So that's why they went there to check out the swamp. Anyway, Dwight was being basically held at gunpoint inside of inside of the forest with Tara. You know, obviously very quiet. They were trying to hide from the Saviors, but Dwight did a very smart thing to get away from Tara and to get away from his death. But also, he didn't screw over the rest of the group either. He basically dodged out of the forest, right next to the Saviors, and he took a big risk, because at this point we didn't know if that girl made it back to Negan and the Saviors to tell him that Dwight has turned sides, right? So he ended up dodging out of the forest, you know, saying hello to the rest of the Saviors, basically asking, you know, where is everybody, you know, explaining that he got ambushed, and he actually asked where the girl is, and they said that they haven't heard from her. That's a good sign, that his cover hasn't been blown yet. And he ended up going with the Saviors to the Saviors compound, and he basically covered for the rest of the people there in the swamp, basically saying, you know, I just came from the swamp, there's nobody there, and I suggest you stay away from it too. We should get going. And then he led them away, basically. So, very good on Dwight's part. Tara just doesn't understand it. I know she's blinded by basically hate and the fact that she wants revenge for Denise. Like, I get that to an extent, but he's trying his damnedest to help your group out. At least let him help your group out, and then afterwards you can settle it. Everybody even wants to do that, you know what I mean? Like, I don't personally want Dwight to die, but even Daryl's smart enough to know that he's still very useful to the group at this point, you know? He's helping. He's full-fledged a part of your group. You know, you can deal with this revenge later, you know? And he certainly chewed out Tara's ass when she got back to the group back there in the swamp. Basically yelling at her, saying, I told you to wait. And, you know, he exclaimed that, you know, honestly, he could be with the Saviors right now. He could have gone back to Negan. Negan could be coming here right now to the swamp. He could have turned on us. You don't know. You know, when he was with us, sure, we don't know if he's necessarily on our side, but he's with us. He can't inform the Saviors. And Tara basically exclaimed that, you know, he's not going to do that. He honestly saved our asses. He saved our lives by saying that he was already at the swamp. He covered for them, you know, and even I think Tara's even starting to recognize that now. Now, I don't know if she's still blinded, you know, I don't know if she technically still wants revenge, you know, after what he did. That could have been a redemption there for Dwight. So in Tara's eyes, hopefully it was, but I guess we will end up seeing. The next part of the synopsis here, Maggie makes difficult decisions at the hilltop. These difficult decisions basically include cutting rations, trying to filter out food, stuff like that, trying to figure out exactly what to do in the way of medical care and, you know, supplies and just food in general. She ended up cutting some rations of basically everybody there. She wanted to cut the rations of the Saviors that she had prisoner even more, but she ended up not doing it in the end. And also they requested for like 1 or 2 to be taken out at a time at like gunpoint, just for like yard work or, you know, anything, right, to just get out of that cage. And she ended up ultimately agreeing to it near the end of the episode. So we have that going. She didn't cut the rations or anything like that for, I mean, she cut them for everyone, but she cut them evenly, basically, for everyone, including the prisoners. I don't know if that was necessarily the greatest idea, but I think she's starting to recognize that, you know, maybe these people, you know, after this war, after they have nothing left to fight for, maybe these people could be renewed. I don't know what word to say, but maybe they could have a place in the new society, if you will, when they build it, right, after this war, after they defeat Negan. So those are the difficult decisions that she was basically talking about, or the synopsis was talking about. Another one, Gabriel's faith becomes tested. This was a pretty big storyline in this entire episode. Gabriel and Dr. Carson were basically on the run from the Saviors. And they essentially wanted to get out, right? They wanted to get out. They wanted to get to the hilltop so that Dr. Carson could take care of Maggie. So they went and basically ended up not being able to start their car anymore, right? They took a car and they weren't able to start it anymore, so it died. They ended up finding a house with medication. Gabriel started to lose his eyesight as well because of his sickness. He is still very sick at this point. He started to lose his eyesight a little bit. And At one point, he like tipped over a vase or something. It broke with an address and some car keys. So they basically went to go check that out. And there ended up being a bunch of bear traps around. And Dr. Carson ended up stepping in one. Gabriel thankfully was able to save his life just as walkers were coming out of the woods to basically attack Dr. Carson as he was on the ground with a bear trap on his foot. He's basically injured at this point, and he ended up saving his life. So he actually ended up shooting the walker, which was pretty difficult for him to do. He ended up closing his eyes and just shooting. That's kind of Gabriel's way of doing things, kind of trying to let quote unquote God, show him the way. So we have that. After that, though, they got into the car, and basically saviors were basically behind them, and ordered them to get out of the car, basically took them prisoner again in the back of the truck. Dr. Carson went for a gun, ended up getting shot and killed, unfortunately, and, that happened. And then Gabriel basically got taken back with the saviors, and he ended up going to Eugene's new compound where he's making bullets, and yeah, man. Ended up going there where Eugene's making bullets, basically going to be like a sorter for like shell casings and actual bullets, stuff like that. So that's what Gabriel's doing now. Unfortunately, they didn't get out. Unfortunately, Dr. Carson died, so Maggie doesn't actually have a doctor now. But near the end of the episode, everybody got to the hilltop. Daryl, Dwight obviously is with the saviors now. But Daryl, Tara, Rosita, Sadiq, all of them got to the hilltop, and now Maggie has a doctor. So it is pretty appropriate if you think about it. Carl basically died saving the person that's going to be Maggie's doctor, and that's going to save that baby. That's pretty poetic, if I do say so myself. So we have that. As they got to the hilltop, everybody, it was kind of like a silent entry, if you will, with just music. Everybody basically found out that Carl died. Carol found out about it. Maggie found out. Everybody at the hilltop didn't know, including an Enid, and she broke down. She started crying, but at least we know Enid's back at the hilltop now, right? Because she left Aaron at the ocean side, basically, the last time we saw her, and she made it back to the hilltop clearly. And she just found out about Carl dying. So she broke down. She was crying, and from there, I mean, that's basically where the episode ends. From there, we have Negan at the very end at the Savior's compound explaining that tomorrow's going to be a big day, and he has a plan, and he's going to use Walker parts, Walker guts, if you will, as a weapon. So essentially, he's basically going to be covering all of their weapons with Walker guts. This is exactly what happened in the comic books, like with arrows and knives and bats and all of that. He's going to be using the Walker virus essentially as a weapon. Because if any part of a walker gets inside of you, that being their teeth, anything, you ultimately turn, right? And he realizes that. Eugene actually gave him the idea. Kind of just a way of buying time, but he did give him the idea ultimately. So he is going to be covering basically all of his weapons, and he explained this with basically tearing a walker apart with Lucille, and the bat was like bloodied and everything like that. And you don't need to necessarily smash anybody's skull in with that bat. You just need to touch them. You need to cut them with it. That's it. And they're basically screwed. They're not screwed right away. They're not going to die right away, but they're going to die. Simple as that. So I have a feeling we're going to get to see that scene, because Dwight's back with them now. If you guys know what I'm talking about, you know what scene I'm talking about as well. It involves Dwight and an arrow. So I'm pretty excited to see that. I think a lot of people are going to think that he's turned sides again, but he hasn't, obviously. And I'm excited to see that scene. I was kind of frightful we wouldn't get to see it, because he kind of fully joined Rick's group at this point. And I mean, he is a full-fledged member of that group, or not necessarily a member of the group, but definitely against Negan, nonetheless. And, he was kind of on their side, and he was kind of frightful that that girl would have told on him by now. But obviously that didn't happen yet. And I think we might be able to get that scene from the comic books where basically he ends up covering an arrow in Walker guts and using it on one of the survivors at Alexandria. Or not in Alexandria, but the hilltop. I'm sorry. So yeah, guys, that's basically where the episode ended. Rick arrived at the hilltop again. We didn't see him. We just heard the gates being called for at the hilltop. Open the gate. Rick, it's Rick, and you know all that. And yeah, man, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. There's actually like a promo of Rick and Daryl basically over at Glenn's grave. So it's gonna be kind of cool to see that. You know, bonding with him again in spirit, obviously, but it's going to be cool, man. It's going to be cool to see them all together because the whole group's back together now. Everybody's there. Daryl, Rick, everybody, Michonne, you know, Tara, Rosita, everybody's there now. You know, Maggie, obviously. Everybody's reunited at the hilltop. And according to Daryl, it's going to be the worst damn nightmare. So anyway, I have a feeling that next episode's going to be pretty big. I can't wait for it, you know. And it's probably going to be one of those points where this war starts the climax, you know. Next week is going to be episode 12. Then from there, we only have 13, 14, 15, and 16 left. So 12 basically marks sort of the halfway point. It's episode 4 in the second half of season 8, right? So it's kind of like the halfway point. This is where stuff's basically going to start to get real, you know. This is where shit's going to start to go down. And then it's going to lead into the second half at probably like 100% intensity. And I cannot wait for it. Anyway, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys are interested in live streams or anything like that, I stream every single day, 2 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. Link is in the first link in the description below. Go check it out. I'll be live over there at 2 p.m. Eastern every single day. And, you know, I stream everything, mostly Fortnite at the moment, but I am planning on streaming other games as well. So if you guys like watching video games and Fortnite and stuff like that, make sure you check out the stream. I'll also post like highlight videos here on YouTube as well. So if you guys are interested in only those, then check them out. But I encourage you to go follow me over on Twitch. I would appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye.